The time I heard shrieking in the woods. When I was 17, my parents were in the process of building their first greenhouse. It wasn't very big, but it was functional. We used it to grow plants like snapdragon, basil, tomatoes, strawberries, and so much more. They had also recently, at the time, added a few fruit trees, mostly peaches and apples, but there were 2 other fruit trees that hadn't been planted in the outside earth yet. They were infamous for dying off randomly, tangerine and lemon if anyone is wondering, so we were keeping them in the greenhouse to hopefully stabilize. One shelf of the greenhouse contained the plants that my teenage self was obsessed with and subsequently cared for. 4 potted dusty millers, 3 potted purple-white pansies, a succulent, and a mimicry plant that looked like a horseshoe. Still have no idea what the hell kind of plant it is. Next to the greenhouse was a little fenced patch of dirt that my mom planned to use for crops once they began sprouting. For some context, I've lived south of the Appalachian Mountains my whole life. Close enough that I'm scared to leave my house at night, but far enough that I'd never personally heard anything before this incident. I always take my dogs with me when I venture outside. Important. One of my big dogs, always wears a GPS tracking collar, because he can and will disappear for hours, and it's terrifying to think we might never see him again. Very important. This kind of collar has an electric field that warns him against leaving the yard. Now to get into the meat of the story. It was about 6 in the afternoon on an early spring day, so the sun was relatively low in the sky. I was inside the greenhouse, watering my shelf of plants. My dogs were much closer to the house than me, so I was basically in the woods alone. The greenhouse is barely 10 feet from the tree line. As I'm caring for the plants, I hear cracking in the woods. I freeze, knowing there was no one else around me. Then it starts. Horrible sounds, coming from the woods. It sounded like a horse trying to mimic a child's screams of joy. But it was wrong, too high-pitched, too scratchy, and it kept looping in this strange way. The sounds made the hair on my arms stand straight up, but overall it was far too close for my superstitious teenage self. I knew the rules by heart. I finished watering the plant was looking at, pretended to check the others and deemed them fine, then began quietly putting things back where they belonged. The greenhouse was covered in fogged-up plastic, so anything out there would have seen nothing but my shadow. I carefully left the greenhouse, locking the door behind me. I wasted no time in climbing the hill towards the house, not looking back. My dog, noticed me and started walking towards me. Out of nowhere, he began sprinting and snarling. It was the first and only time I had feared my dog. He's always been a giant baby, but that day I felt nothing but instinctual terror. Before I could react, he was gone. He had disappeared into the woods, and he vanished for 6 days. I honestly thought whatever I heard had done him in. He eventually showed back up, and now he has a nasty scar through his left eye. The vet told us it wouldn't interfere with his sight, but it was very nautical. To this day, he stays close enough to touch me when I get near the greenhouses. There was only one other time he ever reacted, though. When I looked, I could have sworn I saw a goat staring at me. Funny, considering there is not a single goat in my very sparse neighborhood. The mimic. I'm just in my early teen years and I have a cat and a dog, but 2 months ago I had heard stuff moving in my room, and I share a room with my little brother, so I told him to stop and go to sleep. Then I look at his bed and he's dead asleep. So I texted my friend and told him I hear stuff moving around in my room and my brother asleep, so he said, "That's weird." So later that night, I started to hear the noise again, so I thought it was my cat, and I went to sleep. This was all at 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. When I woke up, I felt weird, and I walked out of my room and went into the living room, and my mom jumped, and I was confused, but I had remembered her of what she saw last night. She told me that she woke up because the cat had jumped up on his feet, and she saw a figure walk out of my room after the first time it made noise, and she told me it was as tall as me, and she thought I was sleepwalking because I sleepwalk a lot, but my cat's hairs were standing up and he was hissing, and it stopped outside of my big brother's room and stood there. After a bit, it looked at my mom and saw that she was looking at him, and he dropped. So my cat ran after it, so my mom got up and went to where it dropped. And it was gone, so she went into my brother's room, and he was asleep, so she went in my room, and me and my brother were asleep. So I told her I heard something in my room, so I texted my friend that I heard something, and she didn't believe me, so I showed her. Whatever that thing was went back into my room to hide. That's why I heard noise and movement again. The red-eyed man. So I went to a college based out of West Virginia and was in a group that toured summer camps, rallies, etc. to recruit students. One of the camps we visited was located in the woods of Maine. At this camp, they had something called Counselor Break Day, or Recruiter Counselor Day. This was a day where all of the normal counselors got the day off, and us recruiters counseled in their stead. Well, I just so happened to get a cabin with a kid named Michael. After dinner, the kids and myself got ready for bed and then stayed up talking and playing games in the cabin. When bedtime came, everyone fell asleep relatively quick, except for Michael. Seeing there was still a kid awake and not wanting to go to bed until all the campers were sleeping, I decided to check on him. I asked him why he didn't want to sleep, to which he replied he didn't want to talk about it. I pressed a little more. You can tell me what's wrong. He slowly lifted his head and said, "The red-eyed man watches me when I sleep." This sent chills through my body. Obviously, he believed that staying up prevented this, so I asked, "Well, what does he do when you're awake?" And with a dead serious stare, he looked me right in the face and said, "He watches you." Neither of us got much sleep that night. My first ghost encounter, a 6th grade haunting. When I was in 6th grade, ghosts were a very intriguing topic for me, and I loved the paranormal, but I never knew if they were real or not. This proved it. I was at my friend's house, having a double sleepover with my friends Lily and Andy. We were all at Lily's house, who lives in a small old house. Her bedroom is in the basement at the end of a hallway. The house is very run down and doesn't have a lot of rooms. In the basement, she always kept the lights off in the hallway but kept the lights on in her room. She also kept her door wide open to the darkness because the door didn't have a knob. But it never really bothered us. I remember that it was a Friday in December because it was already pitch black outside very early. Around 9 p.m., we were blasting music on Lily's TV, dancing and singing loudly, all because her mom didn't care. One thing you need to know is that her basement door and stairs are also extremely loud, creaky and prominent. So, as we were dancing, me and Andy happened to gaze upon the darkness outside the door. Just a blur, a white silhouette of a person walked by in the door. Both me and Andy stepped back, covering our mouths in shock. We were startled, while Lily was looking the other way. The silhouette loved, inhumanly, like a shadow. At first I thought that it was Lily's mom's boyfriend trying to scare us because it was tall like him. But when we told Lily, we checked the hallway and no one was there. Then I realized the creaky stairs and basement door didn't make a sound. No one was in the basement. Both me and Andy saw it and reacted to it at the same time. Lily started to get scared. Well, we all did, but she was worried we were pranking her. Nope, once Lily stepped out for a second, I asked Andy to describe the ghost. To confirm, she told me. It was tall. I'd never doubted the idea of ghosts ever again. Possible serial killer in the family. Today, I found out that my spouse's uncle, let's call him Jay, who has less rain on his mouth in old age with Parkinson's, has spent the last decade talking about how he used to torture and murder people. A lot of them in California, but not just there. Not even just inside the USA. The guy's daughter has been through hell with the guy. She's tired of getting nowhere with the cops. Jay was extremely abusive to her, so she's got all that to deal with in addition to his statements about murdering people. She's been making and keeping notes of what he says he has done for a decade to turn into the cops, and they keep doing nothing. Among the evidence she has are a lot of files in folders and the bastard's old notebooks. She has detailed information from him on the killings, the location of multiple dump sites, etc. This includes the existence of what can only be termed as his murder cabin, which still has the old rusted-on chains on the metal bed frame. By the way, the guy worked as a prison shrink until he lost his license for raping a patient. A patient who was also an accomplice. This is him. He has a creepy resemblance to somebody with a well-known police sketch. Pay attention to the hairline and the glasses if you are into true crime. Yet another massive felon on that side of the family.